season of Drifters comes to a blood-soaked end. Do we get any answers? Not really, but at least we got to see a samurai fighting against some kick-ass ghosts. That's gotta count for something. The final episode of the first season of Drifters was pretty satisfying, especially if you're an action junkie. The entire episode basically just amounted to watching Toyohisa fight against Hijikata, who has the power to summon ghosts, which honestly don't really help him out in battle all that much. In fact, I have to admit I'm slightly disappointed in how the very first season of Drifters ended, because it's not so much as a conclusion as it is just a break before we move on to the second season. And there will definitely be a second season. They make that very clear at the very end of this week's episode. What is really cool about this one, though, is just getting to see all of the Drifters work together and utilize all of their skills as they go to battle with the Black King's army. But even with that, I'm still slightly disappointed. With that in mind, this was still a pretty solid episode of Drifters, where pretty much all of the main characters got to do something cool. Before we get to the whole big Toyohisa battle, I will say that I love the fact that Nobunaga has basically taken control of this massive battlefield and taking advantage of all of the strengths of the various Drifters and warriors that they are utilizing. Yoichi's superior archer skills, the use of some brand new muskets, some dwarves who just love hacking away at people's legs, Toyohisa's ability to completely distract the enemy with his ridiculous over-the-top fighting style, and of course Ominu, who continues to use her magical abilities, not to mention her rockin' bubage. But aside from all of the bloodshed and extreme carnage from this episode, the main event, of course, is Toyohisa versus Hijikata. Now, again, one of the biggest weaknesses of the Drifters anime series, and this is mostly speaking for foreign viewers like myself, is that they throw a lot of Japanese jargon and history at you, which, if you don't know anything about it, you're just gonna be scratching your head. Hell, I have a hard time pronouncing half of the shit that they say in this episode. But still, that doesn't detract from the fact that Toyohisa is an amazingly badass warrior in this episode, and he takes advantage of not only his physical strength, but of his ability to actually get underneath Hijikata's skin. Because for the most part in this episode, he fights a little different than what we've seen in the past. He's actually a little goofier. He's got a constant smile on his face. He ends up just throwing food and all types of weird things at Hijikata just to sort of mess with him. So this way he gets like disconnected from all of the other warriors, and this just gets him to focus solely on fighting Toyohisa, which acts as a great distraction. Basically, they're able to trap like all of these forces inside of this massive castle, they block it off, and then they just light those bitches on fire, which of course just gives Toyohisa the perfect opportunity to fight against this guy. And there is some pretty good choreography, lots of great sword fighting, kicks to the face, and then there's a lot of scenes where basically they just continuously wail on each other. Toyohisa even gets severely damaged multiple times, having his sword snapped in half, getting shot repeatedly by his dwarf followers, who he basically just says, just fire in this direction, it doesn't matter, I will take the damage as long as it results in a victory here. And honestly, that's probably the coolest thing about this episode, is the fact that he doesn't take his dead comrades in vain. For Toyohisa, dying in battle is basically becoming a pillar of faith for the foundation of the future leaders of this world. It's something that he learned when he was a samurai himself, and it's something that he's brought into this fantasy setting. And for some odd reason, Hijikata is not going to have any of that bullshit. He gets completely pissed off by him, especially by all of the antics of him constantly running around, and unfortunately the battle itself also doesn't really have a solid conclusion. It basically just ends with Hijikata jumping on top of a dragon and flying away into the twilight as we're rapidly introduced to some brand new characters whose names, again, I have no idea how to freaking pronounce. They do wrap things up a little bit by showing us some of the other characters during the closing sequence, but there's little to no dialogue, so I have no idea what the hell is going on. One of the most interesting prospects of this episode is that the Count of Saint Germain actually might know who the Black King is, and that's because apparently he might have actually had a relationship with him as well, which is definitely going to throw a wrench into the whole theory that the Black King might be Jesus. But again, we don't have any solid answers. That's the thing about this season. It's a hook. It's meant to get people invested in these characters and in the world so that they'll either A, check out the manga series, or B, stay tuned for the eventual second season. And we don't know when that's coming. They just say it's coming in 20XX. That could mean next year, it could mean 2018, it could mean never. We don't really know. We just know that it is eventually going to be popping up. So, what's the rundown on the final episode of the first season of Drifters? It was okay. It's kind of unfair because today there's also a lot of other shows which are wrapping up, and a lot of them have more finality to them, like today's episode of Diamond is Unbreakable, which I thought just completely blew this episode out of the water. But you can't really compare the two, because this isn't the end of Drifters. This is the end of this current story arc. We don't have, like, a full conclusion to it, so I can't fully fault it for that, for not getting the answers and the solid conclusion that I wanted. If I want more of that, I'm going to have to invest more time in the series by checking out the manga or just waiting for the next season. What I will say is, it definitely delivered on a lot of the action that people are expecting. It opened up with just a lot of extreme bloodshed. I love the scene of Toyohisa and the dwarves just going into these monsters and just completely destroying them. I loved when they trapped them in the building and they were firing on them and just lighting the building on fire. It was really exciting stuff. I really enjoyed it. And especially, I loved the scene at the end where Nobunaga took advantage of the fact that Toyohisa was fighting like a freaking madman. Toyohisa is by default the general of the Drifters, but even he's willing to let himself die as long as he means it's going to result in a victory for his team. And Nobunaga took complete advantage of that, which honestly was pretty damn chilling. That, combined with a lot of the imagery in this episode, was pretty damned awesome. Just a lot of cool moments of the characters standing around, covered in shadow, glowing eyes. It looked pretty damned awesome, especially for the character of Hijikata, who, like the other members of the Ends, a lot of their powers are like borderline supernatural, so getting to see that play out was pretty damned awesome. But overall, I can't lie, I am slightly disappointed by the finale. I was also kind of hoping that the production value would go up a little bit. I mean, this is a good-looking anime series with some solid action pieces, but, like, there really wasn't anything that blew me away and made me say, oh yeah, this is the action anime for me. For me, personally, Drifters is kind of like that one anime series that you can watch once and you'll be satisfied by it. I have no want to actually want to put this, like, in my anime collection at all, like if they ever release it on DVD or Blu-ray. Yet at the same time, I'm still glad that I watched it. I still think it's a worthy addition to the pantheon of kick-ass brutal anime series. And I will say that, the first season was pretty cool. It was really fun to watch. But there's still a few things about it that just irk me the wrong way. And a lot of this has to do more with the creator of the series and his style. I'm still not a big fan of when they, like, show those little comedy bits because they just completely take me out of the moment. Like, I'm getting really invested in the characters, their motivations, the actions behind them, and then we just get a ridiculous scene of the dude who pours raspberries all over the ground and then just jumps on top of them and starts spreading his body around. Yes, it was instrumental in defeating the Orte Empire, not the Orte Empire, the Black King's army, but it came out of nowhere. And they did do that in Hellsing and in Hellsing Ultimate as well. And I didn't really like it there either. I just wish you would just keep that style going the entire time. It definitely clashes with a lot of the super intense and violent imagery from the show. That being said, it still manages to be incredibly entertaining, and I can still recommend this anime to a lot of hardcore action anime fans. So on that front, check it out. If anything, I'm excited to see what they're going to do for the second season. But more importantly, I want to hear from you guys. But before we get there, what is my score for the final episode this year? I'm actually going to give it a 3 out of 5. To me, it was kind of average. There are going to be a lot of people who disagree with me, and I'd love to hear why, and you can tell me in the comments section below. What did you think of the final episode of the first season of Drifters? Were you satisfied by the action? Did you want more answers? Are you going to be tuning in for the second season of the show? What did you think of the first season overall? Please tell me in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching my reviews on the Drifters anime series. If you want to see some of my previous reviews, there will be a playlist on the channel, so make sure to check that out. Share it with your friends, and leave me a comment in those videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the series overall. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment or two, and if you liked this video, please give it a like. It's very easy to do. You just gotta click the thumbs up button. I will see you guys next time, and as always, stay dandy, baby!